Welcome everybody, my name is Jeffrey St Laurent and this is the Tuesday live show coming at you each and every week. I do record all of these Tuesday live shows and I put them in my website, sellingcoaching.com in the university. Today's topic is running up against yourself in business. Sounds kind of weird, but it's how we get in our own way. Some tips and pointers to get you through that, especially in business. But like I said, I put all of this education in my website, sellingcoaching.com in the university. I help coaches transition to a full-time business, and I have some great programs and I have some great education to help you along the way. To start you off, if you go right to the homepage at sellingcoaching.com, and if you enter your name and email address, that's going to give you an audio program called Launching Your Coaching Business, the First 3 Vital Steps. Great place to start. That's also going to put you in my email community. You'll get an email from me on a weekly basis. Great communication, great tips, great ideas to keep you along the way. Also keep you updated on what I'm doing and how I can help you. Right now, I've got a great 5-month GoPro Elite group mentor coaching program. Loving the results of that. If you want to check that out, look in the comments below, whether you're watching this live or the recording. If you look down there in some of the words below, you'll see when I am running the next 5-month program. If you are watching this live, I am running one starting next week. So I do have a few spots left. We're doing it on Wednesdays at 2:30 Eastern. And if that sounds good to you, if you want to learn more about that, like I said, click down below in that link. And that will give you a little bit more information about what it is, when we're doing it. And what I'll do is I'll just throw that in there right now so you can get a better idea of, all the details with that. So let me just paste it in there right now while I'm doing this because the thing just came up. Where it is. Here's the comments. I'll paste it in there. Kaboom. It is now posted. So if you're watching live, you can always check that out. And that's my 5-month group program. With that being said, let's talk about today's topic. And if you are watching live, I love to see, just write something in the comments like, hey, what's up? Or, as you go along, how this is resonating with you or, how this is helping you as we go along. Love to see who's showing up at the live events. With that being said, running up against yourself in business. And this has come up quite a bit lately with some of my mentor coaching clients where, I'm helping them with the structures. I'm helping them with the marketing. I'm helping them with, getting themselves and their message out there more. And they start running into blocks. They start running into, oh my God. And they recognize it's not the activity itself that is challenging for them. It's not like it's necessarily easy, but it's more of their perception of it. It's how they see it. It's the I'll say it like this. It's how that activity triggers them as they think about it or experience about it. It's associations they have with it from things they've learned or seen in the past. And then that's normal. Like at the end of the time, anytime we're doing something new, especially business, and most coaches I find haven't been in business before, right? They're not an entrepreneur necessarily. They're becoming an entrepreneur. Some people are, I don't want to say are naturally entrepreneurial, but they have a tendency for entrepreneurship. Like myself, I would consider myself one of those people. Like I've just, as my mentor years ago said, like he was psychologically unemployable. I am psychologically unemployable. I cannot work in a job. I've worked in a job before. Growing up, I worked at a supermarket, and then I've worked at a health club before I was in the fitness industry. But outside of that, I've never had like a real job where I punch a clock or I've got hours. I've never done it. And I can't, like the thought of me doing that, I don't understand the concept of that. It doesn't work for me. I've always done stuff on my own. Even in high school, I worked at a supermarket, bagging groceries, working in the deli, but I was landscaping and painting, and it was like my own thing. I went on getting clients like that's. So I've been a born and bred, if you will, entrepreneur in some ways. My parents were both employees their whole life. They weren't entrepreneurial, but I had a tendency for entrepreneurship. There are some people that are like that, but I find most coaches I work with, 90+%, and I talk to, they're an employee. They have an employee mindset, right? They don't understand this business thing. They get the concepts of it, but there's something different. And so now when we come into the entrepreneurial world, and especially as an employee or been an employee our whole life, etc., we don't understand the concept of not getting paid for time. I'm in my office right now. I'm not getting paid for time. I'm getting paid for results I create within time. Therefore, it doesn't matter how long or short I'm in my office for. It's the activities that I can do that are going to create me a result. And it's those activities oftentimes, especially if they're newer to us, or we have that employee mindset of like where, we have a job description and we're told what to do. And I show up, at a certain time and I leave at a certain time. I have a break at a certain time. I have a certain amount of vacation. If I'm not sure what to do, I go ask my boss or, a coworker, etc. There's accountability because there's a certain amount of work that needs to get done in a certain amount of time, and we're moving on to another project or another task or, whatever it is. And you go and you show up, and there's an employee mindset of like, I go in and I do what I'm supposed to do, and then, or I do as little as I need to do so I don't get fired. It depends on the type of person that you are. But there's when we get into entrepreneurship, there's none of that. Like there's absolutely none of that. And it's all up to us to be able to figure that out. So that's where when we run up against ourselves that's where, a lot of our tendencies, I'm not going to label them as positive or negative. I'll just say our tendencies tend to take over in terms of how we avoid things we perceive to be painful, how we structure our day, how disciplined or not we are with certain tasks or certain elements. Can you get into your office at a certain time? Equally important, can you leave your office at a certain time? Can you get into your office at a certain time and know what you're supposed to be doing? Or even if you know what you're doing, meaning like some obviously people that I work with, they should know what they're doing because I tell them what to do, or I help guide them as specifically as possible. And they leave a call or a group that I'm working with, and they have very specific actions on what to do. Okay, great. But then, do they have the discipline to follow through with those activities? Do they create the space in their day to do them? That's not always the case. And a lot of it is running into elements that are up in their mind, And so this isn't a magical, event that I give you today, or this information today that, solves all of that. I'm talking about a little bit so you can understand it a little bit more and at a bare minimum, validate if you're feeling that way or you're having trouble with some of those pieces. But what I do want to share is I do want to have some proactivity. I do want to have some education that can help you move past some of those pieces that stop you. And at the end of the day, and it's some things you probably might be familiar with, but I want to ground you or re-ground you in some of those things, especially if you've heard them before. And one of the things that's very important is you've got to have a why. But I don't want you to think, oh, yeah, Jeff, okay, we got to have a why. I've heard that before, next. It's not so much your bigger why. There's a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why. Fantastic book. And a lot of people in our coaching industry talk about having your why. So there's two pieces to that, right? There's the bigger why, as why are you doing this coaching in the first place? Why are you doing your coaching business in the first place? Really being grounded in that. But then there's smaller micro whys. This is probably, you haven't heard this before because I'm making this up. I'm not making it up, but in the sense of this is something that I kind of go by and I help my clients with is you've got to have micro whys. You've got to have a micro why in terms of like, why am I doing this right now? What's motivating me to do this right now? What's going to get me into my office at this time? What's going to keep me in my office? When I run up against myself with a given activity, I've got to reach out to someone new. I've got to make a new connection. I got to send an email, do something that I'm uncomfortable with, I'm familiar with, newer to, where naturally I'm not quite sure. I don't have as much confidence in doing it because I haven't done it much, if ever. There's got to be those micro whys. You go to that big why of why am I doing this, in the first place, etc. Like, yeah, that can help. But to me, it's just like, oh, why am I going to send this email right now? Why am I going to write this email right now? So like maybe yesterday, I'm in a golf league. I golf on Monday nights. Yesterday was at 4:20 was my tee time. And I got off with one of my clients and it was, I forget, it was like 3:00. I had to leave by like 3:40. So I had 40 minutes and I had some things to do. And I'm like, I got one of them was write my email, set up my show for today, which is now, and a couple other miscellaneous items. And it's like I had less than 30 minutes because I had to get dressed and I had to leave by 3:40. So I had about 30 minutes to do that stuff. I had to find a micro why in order to do that. I know my bigger why. That's not an issue, and thinking about that at that point really wouldn't have done anything for me. But I had to get into the microscopic world of going like, okay, well, maybe I could do this later when I get back from golfing. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to be golfing and I don't want the pressure to have to get back at a certain time because I want to relax and hang out with some friends afterwards. And then if I get home, I'm going to want to shower. I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to eat and I want to shower. And then it's going to be like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And the last thing I'm going to want to do is get into my office and then have to think about what I'm going to do. And then I got into it and saying like, well, I want my people to, get this email earlier than later. And I want to have this done. And that was my why of doing it like then. And so that allowed me to focus. And I said, what do I need to do? I need to create my Facebook event. I need to come up with a topic title. I need to get it over to email, expand upon it a little bit, send it off there, and I'm done, right? And so I did it. It took me maybe 20, 25 minutes or so, and I was done. I changed, I ate something, and I left for golf, right? So but I'm showing you, those are my micro whys. Like I've got to talk myself through each part of my day, each segment of my day. It's not hard to get on a coaching call. It's not when a client calls me at, let's say I got a call at 1 o'clock today, like, okay, well, 1 o'clock shows up. It's not like, oh, it's so hard. Earlier on when I started off, I might be nervous because I'm a newer coach and oh my God, I'm nervous for that call. Or now I've got a new client and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a brand new client. It's our first session or it's a new group I'm launching today. I'm nervous, but it's more of like, I want to make sure everything goes well, etc. But it's not hard to show up and do that because it just does it. But in the beginning, we don't have many, if any, clients, right? So most, if not all of our activities are the things you got to do in order to get clients, right? It's the marketing stuff. It's reaching out to someone new. It's writing an email. It's, getting on a video, doing something like this, a marketing message, an educational message. Those things necessarily aren't easy, right? So we've got to find whys or those micro whys along the way to get us through that. And so try that out. Why am I doing this right now? Because it's easy to postpone it. It's easy to say like, oh, I'm going to do a video and then, well, my lighting's bad or my microphone's bad or, you know what, I've got a pimple on my nose or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to show up with a zit on my face. So maybe I'll wait till the end of the week when it goes away, and there's always something else where you do that. But you've got to ask yourself, why do I got to do this right now? Why, find a way to, pull that Band-Aid off, so to speak, and get it done, right? And so that's part of it. And so the next part of it is in line with what we do as a coach is, yes, we got to start coaching ourselves. But it's not like typically just, okay, so it's not just necessarily asking yourself questions, but part of it is it's asking yourself questions, but it's starting to understand what is it about this situation that's challenging you, that's really causing that hesitation or pause. Is it, and there's two sides of it. One is more of the logistical side, like I'm just not quite sure what to do or what to say or how, let's say, mechanically something works. And then there's the other side. I'll say that's the easier side, right? Because there's resources out there. There's me. There's other people, right? There's go to sellingcoaching.com, like go to the university, type in your question, type in some keywords. Maybe I'm one of these 300 shows that I've done, whatever that's going to populate, email someone like myself. Let's have a conversation. And you're like, well, Jeff, I'm not your client. Okay, well, ask me a question. Maybe it leads to us working together. Maybe it's something I can help you with. I don't know, right? Let's see where that goes. But that's logistics stuff, the mechanics of it and not knowing what to do. To me, that's the easy part because there's answers out there. Or you can take a stab at something. You could do something even when you don't know exactly what to do, if it's right or wrong, and it's not going to stop you. So there's ways of understanding that. But then there's the other side, which is most likely the situation. It's not, oftentimes we use the mechanical side, the logical side of some of the activities, or why we're not doing something to be the reason why we're not doing something, when really it's more of the emotion side. It's more of the self-conscious side, the lack of self-belief side, self-esteem, self-love, self-deprecation. It's lack of self-confidence, any family that we're talking about there. And that's where, you've got to go back. Like here's the thing, right? I'm a coach at heart. I'm a mentor coach now, right? But I'm a coach, You're a coach. We believe in coaching. And, at the end of the day, you can coach yourself silly. You can coach yourself in circles of why you're not doing something when it comes to entrepreneurship and business with your coaching business. But it's like, look at the end, I tell my clients this right now, is they'll share something on that side of hesitation or pause from a belief, etc. Or they're scared of something, or they're nervous, or they're triggered by this. And I'm like, listen, I can coach you right now, but I'm not gonna. And as much as I believe in coaching, like at the end of the day, I'm going to give you and lay out the framework for this. This is something you got to kind of just suck it up and do. And I'm going to give you permission to do it however it turns out. And we're not going to put any expectations on the outcome, etc. This is not the thing that's going to be, you don't have this, you're not on stage in front of 1,000 people, which is a once in a lifetime opportunity or once in a very rare time opportunity where you're going to blow this. Like you're doing a video or a live video, you're writing an email to, a couple dozen friends and family. It's like the stakes aren't what you're making them out to be. I try and break it down for them. It's like at the end of the day, I'll tell you, I'll answer some more questions to maybe take away some of the overwhelm. But you know what? You don't need to coach yourself through this. You need to man or woman up and do it. And there's no other way around that, right? So. And if you don't know, like, well, Jeff, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure how to do that. Then it's either let's get some help, reach out to someone like myself, right? Google search, do a little bit of work, not like I'm going to spend the next week to try and figure this out. I'm saying spend 5-10 minutes doing a Google search, seeing if you can find some answers and take whatever information you find or don't find to actually take action on it. Because guess what? Okay, you're going to do a Facebook Live for the first time and you're not quite sure how to do it, right? Google search how to do a Facebook Live. You'll find a video, blah, blah, blah. But even if you don't find that, like muddle your way through it. It takes you longer than maybe it would have otherwise to do it. But guess what? By doing it, you're going to learn something about it. You're going to learn something about yourself. And guess what? Next time you're better equipped to either ask better questions to find better answers or you've learned from birth of fire, right? Or jumping in the pool, so to speak. You're learning because you're doing, and that's where that learning is going to come from. One of my mentor coaching clients wrote me, she's going to set up another session, but then she's like, oh, I'm a little bit, still unclear about my niche and my message. And so I gave her a quick call and I said, hey, let's set up a session, but I wanted to, chat with you because I don't want you to feel confused or lost or whatever. And they're like, oh, I definitely want to talk about my message more. And I'm like, we can definitely talk about it more, and we will. I said, for right now, you just got to start to become comfortable with being uncomfortable in where your message is. Because even if right now you were crystal clear, I guarantee you an hour, a week, a day, or a month from now, in and out, you're going to go in and out of that clarity. So it's just something you want to become comfortable with. I wasn't saying, hey, we're not going to find it. We're not going to get even more clear. But I said, right now, what you're doing is I've set them up with some base systems to start getting their message out there. And I'm like, that's why you're doing that. That's why you're doing a weekly live show. That's why you're writing a weekly email to start off with, because it's forcing you to come up with your message. And there's going to be weeks where you're going to be very articulate and clear. And there's going to be weeks where you just can't. It's just not coming out. But guess what? You've got to. And it doesn't matter what it feels like. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to always feel good. This isn't a business of like, oh, well, it's just got to feel good and it's got to flow. And a lot of us coaches we're about energy and feeling and emotion. And if it doesn't align with us and our values, well, then I'm going to change or I'm going to wait and stuff like that. But it's like, I'm all about that. I'm just saying it's not always going to feel good. It's not always going to flow. You're not always going to be in a space to produce and create and do that. Like there's going to be the worst time in the world. And today I've got to write my email and the world's going to crap and your life's going to crap and your health and your finances and your kids and your relationship. And it's just like, you're at the bottom of the barrel. Well, write the email. It doesn't matter. You've got to do the activity or make the call, have the client, do the show. And sometimes you show up where you show up at, right? I don't show up. I could have had a crappy morning. I actually had a great morning, but I could have had a crappy morning, I've had crappy mornings. My life could be blowing up to crap. And it's like, if it's Tuesday and it's 12:05, guess what? I'm here in front of you. And right now there's 2 viewers watching live. There might have been 5. There might be 0. It doesn't matter. I show up because it's what I do. It's part of my structure. It's part of my systems. It's part of what I know I need to do. And at a bare minimum, I learn something, I grow, even if no one even listens to a word I'm saying right now. And this just goes into the ether of internet or, wherever it goes. Some host somewhere on Facebook, on YouTube, on my website. Doesn't matter. I do it. And yes, I've had the discipline. I've had the repetition of it. I've had the results to understand that doing it in those spaces can produce a result. But even earlier on, that's what I'm here to tell you is even when you're in those spaces, you've got to do that. And like I said, it doesn't matter how you feel. We got to move forward with that. And those are some of the ways that you can start to stop running up against yourself. It's going to continually happen. It's not going to stop. I hate to be the guy who's saying never and not and make those predictions and prove me wrong. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to kind of share what I know. But something that's scary, and in some ways it's always going to be scary. It's just going to have different intensity later on. It's the things I do still get scary. It's just in a different way than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. That's just how it is in life. So it changes in intensity, but that's the value of what we do. And if you are running up against yourself, if you are doing something that's obviously challenging you in a lot of different ways, of course we know that's the greatest sign in the world that we're probably doing something right. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. Hopefully this has been something that is, just kind of grounded you in some truth and reality of what you're feeling, but also not buying into that to hold you back, but to have a different micro why, and there might be 100 of them in a day, right, of reasons why you can keep moving forward.